Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another PT podcast brought to you by Crossroads Community Church in Lindale, Texas. I am your host, PT, with my podcasting partners. It's always great to be with these guys, the Irishman, Todd Bergen. What's up, Todd?
What's up?
How you doing, man?
I'm great.
Are you doing good?
Yeah, I am.
You smell good.
Do I? Thank you.
You smell good. You smell like
took
bacon.
a shower today. Good deal.
Oh, yes.
And I'm joined with the bald beauty himself, Steve Howard. What's up, man?
How y'all doing?
You notice we all look really bad compared to Steve.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's the time of the...
No, man.
No?
You should see Todd, man. He's all groomed up. He looks good, man.
It's,
Not like him.
Yeah.
It's nothing like the
And he's
bald
got
beauty.
a lot of hair.
It's nothing like the bald beauty. Yeah, it's nothing like the bald beauty. I'm just
whatever.
saying. It's the time in the mirror, dude. That's what I'm saying.
true.
Yeah.
I'm 3 seconds with the
That's
gel
how I
and-
prepare my day. Just look at myself in the mirror.
Wow.
Yeah. How does it go again? You can't see this, but it's a slight turn to the right, a slight turn to the left,
Looks good.
a slight turn to the left, to the right, to the left. About 5 or 10 minutes of that, and then then he'll ask, "How does it look?" And then another 10 minutes.
That was college when I had hair.
Not according to Lorraine. Lorraine says it's now shifted from your bald head to your beard.
Beard hairs.
Yes, but that's why we call him the bald beauty, folks, because
whatever.
he cares about beauty. He cares about beauty.
Mm-hmm.
He does.
Thank you, Tim.
I just want to know how you get that glow on the top.
Oh yes, it's beautiful.
Dang.
It's the Lord.
It's the Lord
Yeah, he shines through.
shines through on your head.
Yeah, my head.
It's the halo.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yes, I
It's
let my
beautiful.
light shine.
Yeah, I look in the mirror and I hear, yes, so that's why I'm bald, but it's been a chosen bald. I can still grow the hair. It's selective on where it appears. Whereas Todd, who is a little bit
Full of hair. We're all jealous
Yes.
of you, Todd.
he's got the Irish redhead. Yeah, it's just not fair.
Yeah.
Just not fair. Well, anyways, welcome guys to another PT podcast.
I think I got some years on you guys.
You have a couple of them, but you still have a full head of hair.
Yeah, I think I have more gray than you do, but not as much as Tim.
Yeah. Tim's got the gray.
Tim's got the gray beat.
Dude, when you pastor for 25 years, you have gray hair.
I bet that is part of it.
Yes.
And I really don't care what color it turns as long as it don't turn loose. My hair.
Yeah.
Rather have gray than away.
Yeah, gray than away.
true.
That's
That's
right.
true.
That's right. So anyways, we digress.
Yes.
That was the mother of all rabbit trails, but it
Yes.
doesn't matter because that's what this is all about, the randomness of PT and the PT podcast. Listen, we are really excited.
forgive you.
Thank you. Thank you. Boy, that sounds like a podcast. I'm not laughing really. All right. So anyways, we are really happy that you guys are listening in every week, and we appreciate you. Last week, we had an incredible time with Grandpa Larry Maddox coming in, and we appreciate. I've gotten several messages about how they're thankful that they were able to hear that. I got one in particular from a guy from Center, Texas, which Grandpa was the pastor at the First Assembly of God there in Center, Texas for quite some time, I think about 10, 12 years, and was very positive impact there. But one of the people that were part of his congregation there listened in last week and was blessed by it, and I'm really happy that it's reaching people in that regard.
Amen.
I need your help though, folks. I really need you to go out there to the PT Podcast Facebook page, which is at the PT Podcast. You go there and you like the page, and then I want you, every time that we post a podcast, I want you to just share the snot out of it.
Yes.
I want you to share the snot out of the podcast. I want you to comment. I want you to love. I want you to like. I want you to laugh. I need.
Tell us where you're from.
Yeah. Start talking with us. Yeah, message us. Let us know where you're at, and comment on the Podbean thing. When you go on Podbean, and if you're a member of the Podbean, that's where we actually post. That's our hosting site. We want to thank Podbean for doing that.
Yes.
Even though we're paying them to do it. Thank you for letting us pay to put the podcast out there. But anyways,
What a blessing.
Yeah, what a blessing. But I want you guys to realize that without your help and without your support, we kind of stall out. So we need your help to go out there and like it and post and have conversations with us about stuff. We really thrive on that feedback. Thank you. So being that as it may, the more that you share, the more that you comment, the more that you post, the more exposure that we get out there, and people will start listening. And we've had several in fact, we've had prayer requests come in. Whose phone?
That,
Whose phone? Who did that? That is breaking the rule number one. We cannot have.
Oh my Lord!
Yes, we got to shut those things off. Hold on, folks. We're going to shut these things off. Okay, where's mine? I think it could have been mine, to be honest with you.
No,
it's not mine.
It was mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ding.
Shame on you, Todd.
Todd. No! You're not supposed to do that. All right. So, anyways, that was a dinger. Anyways, all right. So we're getting a lot of testimonies of people calling in, or not calling in, but people writing in messages. We've actually had prayer requests come in, about people's marriages or people's lives, and we're excited to be able to pray with you about those things. So please do that. On other news this week, a really banner time for me and personally, celebrated on Wednesday a 20th anniversary with my wife. Why? Thank you.
Way to go.
Thanks. She actually deserves the applause on that, because
sure.
I don't know how anybody. Now, Steve, you're crazy, so I'm not going to put you've lasted a little bit longer than 20 years with me. Since we were 14 when we first met each other.
Yes,
but you've not been married with me and had to kiss me.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know how
There's
anybody.
a blessing.
Yeah.
Yes. Whiskers. Don't like whiskers.
Yeah, I don't like them either, man. Yeah, you're for real. But Cheryl evidently likes me a little bit, and so she stuck around. I know I love her.
That's awesome.
Y'all keep her in your prayers. She's on a COVID wing. She's a registered nurse, and she's working. It's been very, very tough.
Wow.
Out there in the world of COVID. Mm-hmm. And so y'all keep her in the prayers. But yeah, 20 years, man. I don't know how she's put up with me. Actually, we've been together. We didn't live together, but we were dating for 2.5 years before then. So she's actually been around me for 22.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how she's done it.
It's the Lord. It's got to be.
It's got to be the Lord. Here's the other thing. Last week, remember, this was, I think, Todd's favorite story. About Grandpa being in the forest, and they went and prayed.
Yes.
And he was with a certain particular guy. His name was Forrest Gibbs. Frosty is what he called him. Cool. This week, we got the call yesterday and today's Friday, by the way, that's when we recorded this. But yesterday, Thursday morning, we got the call that Brother Frosty Gibbs had passed away in his sleep. At the age of 88. So we're going to keep praying for Larry Maddox and the family. I know my mom, and we're very, very close to them, and our hearts go out to that family. Wanda especially, who has lost her husband of 70 years, guys.
Wow.
Yeah. They just celebrated last month 70 years.
You're bragging
That is
about
awesome.
20.
Yeah. I'm not bragging on it, man. I'm just saying it's a miracle.
That is a miracle.
And for 70 years, I mean, that's almost unheard of anymore.
That's amazing.
So when you start talking about the years that it comes on, it's amazing to me that people have chosen to live a life of forbearance and long suffering. And when we start talking about Frosty and Wanda, that was such an incredible. I know my grandparents on my dad's side was 65 years, and then Grandpa passed away right before they hit another one. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. You get these kind of numbers, and then we had another friend of ours. Her name is Kathy. She passed away from COVID.
Oh my.
And very, very difficult passing. So it's been a week, man. It's been a week wrought with not only celebration, but pretty bittersweet with the losses that we are experiencing. And we know that Frosty and Kathy are in a better place. But you guys keep the Kathy's family in your prayers. She's got a daughter, grandsons, or grandkids, and sons, and a daughter, and a husband that she leaves behind. And I know that there's a church family at the Church of Garden Valley that are just reeling, because she's such a positive impact everywhere she went. In the city of Van, she worked at the farmhouse, and she was a huge blessing there. I know they're reeling from it. Mm-hmm. So you guys just keep them in your prayers. But we also are celebrating not only an anniversary, but Todd, you have some pretty hoss papa news, right?
It's been great.
Let us know all about it.
Okay, come on, man.
So now, I don't know, we didn't really get to do a podcast on this or anything as far as saying the statement, but me and my wife had decided to sell our house to start a ministry, C3 Serenity Farms, and right here on the church property. And so that house has been sold,
Amen.
And we are able to move forward on the project, so we're super excited. Can't wait to tell everybody about it. Yeah, it's going to be
That's
exciting.
awesome.
Now, it had to be God. It had,
Yes.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Every aspect of it was all about God, because too many things fell into place when we thought, man, there's no way. There's no way. And then all of a sudden, there's God.
Yes.
And so he managed to give us a place to stay and money to do everything with. And so once we completed the project, it all fell into place. And we had a great friend of ours who was a realtor, and he helped us out. And he's also supporting the project. So,
Man.
it's awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
You know, when we first started talking about the Serenity Farm project and things like that, it's huge leap. And for things to drop like they have dropped, and for things to work out the way that they have worked out, it goes back to that provision podcast on episode 2 with Jim and Dee. When you take steps and you put God in the position to come through, He does come through. Now we've got a C3 Serenity Farm. We're going to be starting the first tier of things that we're wanting. What do we call it? The first?
Yeah, first phase.
First phase. And it's here's the cool thing about that. It is completely already paid for, the first phase.
Wow.
Yes, that God has provided the way to get the first phase completely finished. But that doesn't mean that we don't need people to come in alongside us and to give to the farm project. So please, you guys, this is another opportunity for you guys to support a Crossroads and the local farm of C3 Serenity Farm. You guys just give to that. You can find more information about that at C3 Lindale at the Facebook page, or at C3 Serenity Farm. There's a page dedicated to Facebook. As far as I think, that might not be live yet.
I think it's still in the process. I don't know if we've gone totally live with it yet.
We might not have, but stay tuned. Yes. I know that you can still find some more about the project at C3 Lindale page. So you guys check that out. Also, hey, I got the new Second Childhood shirts.
Yes. The second childhood.
The second childhood shirts.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Not the first ones.
We're going to keep having our second childhood. I
Awesome.
think. Yeah, I think it's going to happen. So anyways, there's a lot of great stuff going on. Today we're going to be talking about...
I want one of those shirts.
You want... Okay, good.
I got to get some too.
You can
already
get
got
some.
The first one. I want the second.
If you're interested in getting one of those shirts, just message me on Facebook. I will tell you, or I'll just tell you after the podcast what you got to do to get them. Yep.
No, make him message you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, you got to message me.
Sorry.
Do you take trade-ins?
Trade-ins?
No, because I've smelled that shirt. All right, so
before the shower,
we're going to be talking about a doozy of a subject matter.
Yes.
But I think it's so incredibly important. We don't have a guest today. We're just going to be us three talking about it, me, Todd, and Steve. And the reason why this is so imperative is because I think there are so many misconceptions about this topic, forgiveness. And a lot of people, they have a lot of condemnation when it comes to this subject because they are expecting impossible things out of themselves. And I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 18, though, right now. We're going to kind of briefly run through what Jesus says about forgiveness and forgiving your brother. And then we're going to talk about 3 different ways of forgiveness. Before we're going to talk about those 3 different ways, though, we're going to kind of try to define what it looks like and what it doesn't look like, and have a conversation between us 3 about what we believe about those things. Try to stay away from what one of my favorite people in the world, Kevin Harrison, Pastor Kevin, calls specula Jesus, which is this is what I think is right. We're not going to try to do that. We're gonna lead by experience what we've gone through and stick to what we know to be true. But let's go to Matthew chapter 18. We're going to start with verse 15. Once again, that's Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. And I'm reading from the ESV, the English Standard Version. And it says, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone." That's huge.
Yes.
I reckon so. You don't need to take it before the church the first time, even though you might be upset. Stay between you two for a little bit. Yeah.
Stay in the lines.
Yeah. I can't tell
Don't
you.
tell everybody what they did.
No.
Yeah, it's nobody else's business.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that can't do nothing about it.
If you're offended or if he's offended, you guys work it out between the two of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's some good advice right
Yes.
Yeah.
there. It's like Jesus knew what he was talking about.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
It's in red.
Don't run some gossip out there.
But he also knows that some people are mean, or that they're obstinate.
What?
Yeah, I know.
No way.
Can you believe that?
No, I
So
can't.
Matthew 15, we're still Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. It says, go between you and him alone. If he listens to you, it's a big if,
Yeah.
then you have gained your brother. Verse 16, but if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. So now we're bringing 2 or 3 people along with us. We've kind of got a mediation going.
Right.
If he's still not listening,
Yeah.
he says, verse 17, if he refuses to listen to them, then tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And again, I say to you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. Now, there's a whole other podcast just in these 2 statements.
Yeah.
But you have to understand the context of what Jesus is talking
Yeah.
about. He's not talking about your Lamborghini. He's not talking about your prosperity. He's talking about resolving conflict. And he's talking about letting go of something.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are having issues of letting go with stuff, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's worry of those things, you've got to stop thinking in terms of materialistic things. It's a spiritual battle. It's not a physical battle. And sometimes there are physical battles to be had, but when we're dealing with other things, other situations in our lives, like people, we're having people problems. More oftentimes than not, and the Bible is really clear, our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities of power, spiritual wickedness, and thrown in high places. So we need to understand when Jesus is talking here, he's not conveying that if 2 of you gathered and you agree regarding a Lamborghini, it's talking about, okay, you agree that this
According
is
to his will.
Yeah, as far as the context is concerned, he's talking about this conflict.
Yeah, he is talking. Well, that's correct.
Yeah, he's not talking about getting stuff that you want. He's talking about if 2 of you are agreed about this subject and what's going on, and you bind it on earth, it'll be bound in heaven.
Yeah.
So he's talking about a genuine concern about the conflict resolution.
Yes.
Okay, but he goes right after verse 20, he goes right into 20. And remember, when Matthew's writing this, he's not writing in verses. So this is all complete thought. And he goes into verse 21, and he says, then Peter came up to him and said, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? How many times do you expect me to do this? How many times is he going to hit me in the face? As many as 7 times? And Jesus said to him, I don't say to you 7 times, but, and everybody knows what this is, 70 times.
I'm 77.
70 times 7. Yeah, but 77 times. And he said, therefore, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. That's a lot of money, guys. It's a whole lot of money. And since he could not pay, his master ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. So essentially, the king said, pay up, or I'm selling you into slavery.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell everything you own. And you notice that even then it wouldn't settle the account. There's so much money that was owed, and the servant didn't have it. So verse 26, so the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, have patience with me, and I will pay you everything. And verse 27, and out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him the debt. But when the same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, which is nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Like pennies compared to what he owed. And seizing him,
like $20 or something like that, maybe.
It's like pennies compared to the 10,000.
Yeah,
it was a day's wage, is what it was.
Yeah, and he owed like millions.
Well, he owed tons, man. Let's see. He said 10,000 talents, which is about 20 years' wages.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a talent was it was a monetary unit that was worth about 20 years' wages for laborers.
Okay.
So 1 talent was 20 years. He owed 10,000 talents.
Wow.
So just
Somebody was way behind their payments.
Yes.
one month, 10 years.
There's no way he could have paid
one
it back.
day. Denarii is 1 day,
That's
wage.
Right. That's right.
Wow.
A talent is 20 years.
Yeah.
And he owed
had
10,000
talents. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So-
a good perspective.
Yeah. So he gets, once the king forgives him, he goes out and he finds his servant and he owes him 1 day's wage. And he seizes him and begins to choke him, saying, pay what you owe. So his fellow servant fell down and did exactly what he did with the king. He pleaded with him. And he said, have patience with me and I will pay you. And
Which you could have easily paid him back because you only owed 1 day's wage.
Well, with a little bit of patience, probably could have got it the next day. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? But he refused and went out and put him in prison until he should pay the debt.
Wow.
So instead of mercy, he went ahead and did justice. He went ahead and put him in, and he had rights to put him in prison if he didn't pay. Okay, just like the king had rights to sell him into slavery. So, just saying.
Yeah. Just saying.
So when his fellow servants saw that what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. So then his master summoned him and said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you?" And in his anger, the master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. All right, so some heavy stuff.
Heavy.
I've heard it said, and it is interpreted several, that the Lord will recall your
Debts.
your debt. Yeah. So we need to have a conversation here, because I know that out there, forgiveness sometimes equates forgetting. And you've heard the old adage of forgive and forget.
Forget.
Yeah. It's almost like grace and mercy. Those two things are not the same thing.
Not the same thing, but they're always put together.
But they're always put together. So you've got forgive and forget. So my question to you guys, do you think it's possible to forgive and forget? Is it possible for us to forget anything, first of all? I mean, obviously in old age, I'm experiencing that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that kind of thing. Usually, if I slap somebody, they remember that.
Yes.
It's a lot easier to remember negative things.
Yes.
I don't know if you've noticed that.
Agreed.
So what do you think? I mean,
I would say that you can forget. I know that many things in my life I've forgotten.
Right.
I chose to forget. Sometimes if they're just in a spot where I don't want to be, or I don't want to think about it, I find myself going, okay, let's just file it in the back and let's not address it. And I don't know if it comes with forgiveness though, but I know that it does come with kind of a back of the mind, out of sight. And I guess that is out of sight, out of mind. But, my forgiveness usually comes with something that I have to deal with face to face right now.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, you file it away.
Yeah.
My question is, forgetting it to me sounds like it's impossible for me to recall.
That's not true.
No, yeah. You can still recall it. It's whether you choose to recall it. It's a choice.
It's like you choose to forgive.
So if I forget something, like I can't remember a name.
That's different.
Yeah. That's different.
Okay, so that we're kind of having the conversation here,
Yeah.
but if we're putting the forgiveness in with the forgetting, and it is a offense that we've got, you're telling me that it's a choice to forget. Are you telling me that if you're making that choice, do you have the choice not to forget it? Can you recall it?
Yeah.
Yes. I think what the issue is not to dwell on it,
Yes.
because it's kind of hard to forgive something that your mind's always on it.
Meditating on it. Yeah.
That's the difference, is you have to make a conscious choice to forgive them, but you don't put yourself in a place to be hurt again, but you might, but you want to, but you still, not that you don't forget what they've done, but you concentrate on positive things, and you don't dwell on what they've done, and you don't, every time their name come up, you don't want to do something to retaliate. That's how you kind of know if you've been.
What would you do, Steve?
Yeah, if you
Get off the cliff.
That's how you know if you've forgiven or not. If you
Shove them off the cliff.
have vengeance in your heart, like you want to retaliate in some way, then you know that you still have some work towards forgiveness of that issue.
And let's think about it. If there's people that come in and out of your life all the time, and so if you have somebody that comes into your life and they've done something, maybe they've wronged you, but then they're out of your life, it's a season, then you can look at it this way. I can choose to forget that situation because, hey, they're not coming back into my life.
Those are easier ones too.
Those are easier
forgive.
ones. Yeah.
It's those ones that
But do you
are
really- I don't know
closest
if
to
you-
you that are the hardest.
I don't know if you really forgive them, but that's kind of an incident where you put it in the back of your mind because you're like, they're not here for me to. I can lay it on the heart of the Lord and say, look, Lord, I forgive them, or I hope they forgive me for what I've done. Whatever the case may be. But if you can't actually have that conversation to provide that forgiveness, then what choice do you have? You going to dwell on it?
Well, as the world defines forgetting, it's
that's true.
You can't. I can't see it from your perspective in a worldly perspective. It's obvious that it's impossible for me to forget. If I put my hand over a fire, I'm going to remember the pain that comes along with doing that. That's called learning.
Yes.
That's something that we have to do in order. You don't want to make dumb mistakes again. So like you were talking about, I'm going to remember the hurt because I don't want to put myself in that position again.
Yes.
That's what Steve was saying. But at the same time, the world equates forgetting as something that it's just, if you forgive, you should not recall. I know a lot of people have a lot of, and I say a lot of people, I think there are quite a few people out there, and you guys can correct me on message if you want to, comment or whatnot, but I think the general consensus out there is forgiveness comes alongside with forgetting. You have to forget. You cannot, in fact, in counseling, a lot of times you're not allowed to bring up past things. You're not, because you are supposed to have
moved forward.
Forgotten that.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to recall those things.
Well, I believe that they usually have you recall it because sometimes you suppress it, so you need to bring it back.
Saying that you haven't actually forgiven.
You haven't dealt with it. So, but once you've dealt with it, then you need to
move on.
Well, I know, but so once you moved on, are you telling me that you've forgotten it? You're not bringing it back up again?
No.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I don't think it's possible for us to say, with a world perspective, that, and I know that we're trying to come from a spiritual perspective, but I want to bring a realism to this thing. In utopia, yes, I can say what God says. I'm going to cast it as far as the east is from the west. But remember, his reach is still farther than the east is from the west. Yes. Right. So he can reach farther than that. So it might be pretty far away.
Yeah.
But the choice is to not remember it. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're not learning, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we aren't able to recall those things. There's pain involved in offense, always.
Yes.
You can't help it. And sometimes people do things to us that burn us or hurt us or spurn us, and it calls into question their trustworthiness. And that's something that we don't talk a lot about in our culture today.
Yeah.
Trustworthiness. We talk about credit.
Yeah.
Did you pay this? And we're talking about civil suits or things like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easier to talk about, well, all right, you need to forgive that. Every one of us has been in a position where there's too much month at the end of the money.
Yes.
And we talked about that in week 2. But this time we could be talking about, really heavy things like molestation, pedophilia, adultery. These are
heavy.
Really, really heavy things. And you said something, Todd, which really stuck out to me is, the recollection of these things or the recalling of these things it's you can't help but have that reaction once it happens. You file it back there because you don't really know what to do with it. And then sometimes you don't have a forgiveness to give. I know personally there was something that happened to me at age 8. I'm not going to go into it, but personally at age 8, I had something very sinister happen to me. And before I had a chance to really get the guy, talk to him and have a come to Jesus meeting, because that's, what I wanted to do. This is before I really allowed the Lord to deal with my heart about it. But he died.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
This guy dies. So it's like, well, there's a page there that I never shut the book on, because how do you get closure? What if you can't? What if there is no apology? What if there is no, and is forgiveness about the mutuality of coming together and resolving it? Or is it, and I love what we're saying here. Yeah. I love what you said, that you have to choose to forget. You have to choose to say, okay, I'm not going to recall that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let that rule me.
That back.
Yeah. I'm not going to let that rule me. And forgiveness is a continual process of saying, I'm not going to remember that. I'm not going to call that to remembrance. I'm not going to bring that out.
I'm going to dwell on it.
And I wonder if the Lord is the same thing, like exactly what you said. I'm not going to dwell on that. I'm not going to ruminate. I'm not going to meditate on that.
Yeah.
I love that you said that. That's really insightful, because to me that's freeing. It's saying, well, I don't have to wait for this guy to come to me and apologize.
Right.
I can say, all right, I can forgive that guy even if he doesn't apologize.
I can move on.
Yeah, I think that's why he has the two, to bring the two witnesses, because you've done your part, and they just witnessed that, hey, this guy just laid it all out there. He asked for forgiveness. He tried to work it out, but the other person decided not to. So he's free. He has decided he did what he was supposed to do. Now it's up to that person whether or not they want to forgive what they did, because a lot of times there's mutual fault. It's not.
Sure.
There's always, when you tell a story, it's always going to be
two sides.
There's always going to be two sides to the story, but people are always going to tell their side of the story.
Well, sure, yeah.
You got, that's part of forgiveness too. You got to always
Unless
remember
you're me,
that,
and then it's
always right.
I'm always right.
You have a fault in this too, so you need to make sure that Now you need to forgive me because I didn't do anything to you.
Right. Exactly.
That's well, it's because we judge ourselves by our intentions and we judge others by their actions.
Yeah.
So it's really easy for us to see our hearts in the matter. And as innocent as our hearts might be in the offense, the fact of the matter is you still offended somebody, and somebody's looking at us to judge our action. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily know our heart.
No.
And it's extraordinarily difficult to be on the outside of a person's their heart, their intentions. Because what I'm doing is I'm trying to assign your intentions by what your actions are. And we're
looking from the outside.
Yeah, looking from the outside in.
Yeah. One of the greatest stories that I've ever seen on TV, I don't know if y'all seen this before, was when there was this mother, her kid was shot by another young kid, and he was killed. And God dealt with her to forgive that man. And she went to him in prison. And she witnessed to this guy. This young kid became a man in prison, and she led him to the Lord. And he wound up living next door to her.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he became like her son that she had lost by his own hands.
Talk about
forgiveness.
Yes.
In a nutshell. Even the world saw that, and they had to put it on TV.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody's ever seen that.
I remember that show.
It was amazing. That's one of the most amazing stories of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Other than Jesus, dying on the cross for all of our sins.
Right.
That is just the picture of forgiveness. I mean, I don't know how you can get any better than that.
Earlier on in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus, he says it in the Beatitudes. He says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." Yeah. So it's in the
I don't know if I could ever do that. I don't
know if you have a choice.
I know, but
giving mercy?
I would not want to be in that place.
Well, no, I mean, who wishes that on themselves to be in that place?
I mean, it'd be easy to say, yeah, that would be me. I'd be that way, but man, that takes
a lot.
Ultimate forgiveness to be able to do something like that. I mean, only God can do something like that.
I don't know. See, I'm not sure I agree with you, Steve. I think it's all in the way that we perceive. I don't want to be put in
that place.
Well, I don't think so either. I don't think anybody wishes that on themselves or anybody for that matter.
I'm just being honest.
Well, I agree with you. I'm saying that I agree with your honesty. I'm not necessarily certain. It depends on your perception. Because if you're looking at something and you're saying this is happening to me and I have to choose to forgive and I'm not sure I can, I'm not sure that we're seeing the whole entire picture if we're looking at it with that viewpoint. And then we start to look like that servant that says, I've got to go and I got to pay this as soon as I possibly can. I got to go and hold somebody by the nape of the neck because they've wronged me and I need to make sure that happens, instead of remembering that days before.
Well, I could forgive them, but I don't know if I
can't forget.
Yeah.
Or live next to them.
I don't know. It would, have to be God that would work through me. Just like, I'm sure that's what happened with that lady, is that God just somehow worked her heart to be able to forgive.
Some people have that gift.
I have a pretty good gift of forgiveness.
Of mercy?
In mercy. I do too have mercy. I have mercy. Have mercy. You know that.
The looks that are going on in the studio.
I will say.
You know me well.
I will say this, that we all have our lines.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are supernaturally inclined.
Yeah.
Just like in 1 Corinthians 12, where it talks about that the Holy Spirit comes. And I think in that instance, the Holy Spirit may have come and given her a supernatural gift of
That's
mercy.
what I'm thinking.
But
it had to be.
When we're talking about forgiving others, it's easy when you look at those things to go, okay, I can forgive others. I think in light of what we're reading, have mercy, you'll be given mercy.
Mercy, yes.
Or if you realize how much you've been forgiven, it's going to be hard for you to recollect somebody else's, denarii when you owe 10,000 talents.
Yeah, you got to keep your perspective.
How many times have I offended God?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
How many times have you forgiven me?
Yeah.
So I think we have to understand though, and understand his viewpoint as well, because he forgives us when we are really asking his forgiveness.
Yeah.
I think he is diligent to forgive all of our trespasses as we come to him and ask him.
Yeah.
He's faithful to forgive us of our sin.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is what it says. But I also think that he's given a promise to those people that recall other people's debt. Even in the Lord's Prayer, he says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a line all the way throughout Jesus' teaching where he says, listen, your Father is willing to forgive you if you're willing to go out and do the same.
You got to forgive others.
And in light of everything that I've forgiven you, the 10,000 denarii or 10,000 talents, excuse me, then are you willing to forgive
others
the denarii, the day's wage versus, your 20 years times 10,000.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in light of that, it's easy to forgive other people in that perspective. I understand what you're saying, that I'm not sure I could bring them on and let them live next to me. And there are supernatural things that.
Well, I mean, he actually became her, she treated him
adopted
as if
son.
Adopted son. Yeah.
Well, what does God do?
He adopts us as sons.
Yeah.
And like you said, he didn't require, he requires us for salvation, but he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So he said, Father, forgive them preemptively, even though they didn't say forgive at that time.
Right.
They didn't say, well, forgive us for what we're doing to you, Jesus. Will you forgive us? But now that's how we become to salvation, is we ask him to forgive us for what we've done. So he already forgave us up front. So that's what we do with reconciliation with him.
He's beseeching, he's advocating on the cross for us. So the Father is making determination at real time through the sacrifice of his Son, Jesus Christ. When you go to him, that forgiveness is made possible through the atonement of Calvary.
Yeah.
That you are able to have a relationship with Christ, and in Christ's atonement, God is able to forgive, and that punishment is satisfied.
Yeah.
Okay. Because obviously, if we're talking about the theological premise here, God has got to be faithful to his word, and that all sin leads to death. It's just the way it is. That's the system.
Right.
When he told Adam and Eve, if you sin, this day you'll surely die. So it comes into play God's immutable law of if you sin, you will die. That's part of it.
Yeah.
So in order for you to be justified, there had to be an atonement. There had to be a righteous reaction. And for God to be faithful to his word, there had to be an atonement. Jesus provided that. And that's a whole other podcast to begin with. But forgiveness is made way. When I'm talking about our relationship with it, because I know each and every one of us sitting here right now has got real-time forgiveness things where we are either recalling or we remember, or in light of the entire picture of what God has done in us and how much he has forgiven to us with other people, it seems to me, and this is just me, but it seems to me it is illogical for me to command apology or even demand that, you owe me anything after I have been forgiven so much. Now, obviously, I'm not a carpet. I'm not somebody to rub feet on. But at the same time, man, we live in a culture where it's like justice now. I want you to give me justice now. In fact, I want you to give me justice for 300 years ago when your fathers did this to my fathers. We're living in that kind of day and age right now, and we're paying for everybody else's mistakes as far as, and they are too. They suffer just like anybody else suffers on this planet with retribution or revenge or any of those things. What I'm saying is, in light of what God has done for us, if you look at that full perspective, it's going to be really difficult for you to stand on your high horse and demand somebody at the nape of the neck that you've got to pay up what you owe me. You owe me an apology. And but really? I mean, after everything you've been forgiven, do you have that right to demand anything? And why can't we be more like Jesus on the cross, where we go, all right,
Father, forgive them.
and then I think we can embody
I can forgive them.
The scripture reference that says, be careful not to take an offense.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a dynamic there where we understand what we've been forgiven, we understand where we're at in the mercy seat, and I think that we can literally have a conversation with ourselves regarding other people.
Yeah.
You know, now it becomes a little more difficult when you start looking at yourself.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you guys have issues where you look in the mirror and you know what you've done and you're upset with yourself?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yes.
Many times. And the forgiveness, I think, when you're looking at the inward side, and you have sins that you're looking at, or issues that you've done, or wrongs that you've committed, and you want to justify it. I mean, first of all, if you're not bringing it to the Lord, you are going to be stirring up some serious stew inside.
Yes.
You know,
A lot of people, forgiving themselves is one of the hardest things to do.
Why?
well, I think we put a lot of emphasis on ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of expectation.
A
You
lot
think?
of expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, people have a criteria that they follow. Well, most do. And then if you're trying to stick by it and you failed it, well, now you're a failure, because that's what we're taught. You don't do what you're supposed to do, then you're a failure. I mean, that's what we were brought up as young individuals. We're trained that way from the beginning. And so here we are.
You knew better. You did it anyways, and
Yep.
therefore you failed.
Yep.
I'm not gonna argue with that. I absolutely believe that's true. We have, if you know better, and you do it, then to you that's
What's wrong with you?
Well, no,
Why'd you do that?
that's sin.
That's
Yeah.
sin, yes.
I mean, when I was a kid, that's if you knew better. Even I teach on a regular basis. It's like the lady that's planting her garden, and the reaction is different if she's planting her garden and she's pulling weeds at the same time, and she looks back and she sees her 2-year-old that's back there, or 3-year-old, or wherever, however she can be cognizant. She's back there and she's got a handful of her flowers. And she goes, "Look, Mommy, I helped you pick the weeds today." And she's got all of her flowers in her hands. The mom's like, "I just worked my tail end off to plant those flowers," but it's a 3-year-old. She didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus if Lorraine is planting flowers and they were supposed to go on a date, her and Steve, and Steve,
Steve picks
she
the
looks
flowers?
back behind as she's picking the wood, pulling the weeds, and she's been planting her tulips, and she looks back and Steve's back there. He's got some, goofy grin on his face. He goes, "Look, Lorraine, I helped you pick your flowers today." She's going to have to kill the dude right then and there. It's going to happen. All right. So,
There'll be some forgiveness in the home.
but why? Because you know better.
Yeah.
You're not 4 usually.
Yeah.
So
I'm not 4. I'm 44.
you're 4. Oh,
2 4s.
putting that out there, are you?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm 24.
I'm just saying that usually we're not 4-year-olds. When at our age, we should know better. And so when you know better, the fault is, it's a lot more ominous, isn't it? If I know better and I do it anyways,
Yeah.
then it is absolutely not a good thing. It's sin, is what the Bible says, what James says. If to him that knows to do it and he doesn't do it,
And does it, sin.
yeah, it's sin. So knowledge equals responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
100%.
So if you guys, in that same capacity, what he's saying is, if we're guilty of something, we know that we're guilty of something, and why is it so hard to forgive ourselves? Is it maybe because we know our intentions?
Probably. It's a deeper thought. Or that you might do it again. Yeah. I mean, how many things do you walk on the water with and go, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lord. Please forgive me. I didn't mean to do that. I know that's wrong." And then, all of a sudden the week comes around and goes, and next week comes, and
I'm sure you're the only one, Todd.
I know. I'm probably, yeah.
No, I think all of
Pretty
us have
much.
been in that boat. Oh, Tim, you don't be Mr. Pastor.
Oh my gosh. Tim
don't
shook
be-
his head no.
Yeah,
Just for
right.
the audience. Yeah.
They're not supposed to know that, guys. I did that here.
Oh, that's
so
right.
nobody
You're a
can see me.
pastor, so you're supposed to be more perfect. You're on the pedestal.
Three-legged.
Whatever. Everybody has done that.
Pedestal Tim.
My thing is, we have to be careful
Yeah.
as far as we're not making excuses for continually slapping God in the face.
That's right.
Or slapping someone else in the
Yes.
face.
Because there has to be repentance. That's where
And what's repentance?
is
Another
not doing
podcast.
again, making a conscious decision to turn away.
Yeah, from what we were doing before.
Yeah.
That we constantly know that that's wrong.
And the forgiveness thing, and that's one thing that I have a hard time with. He says that the king forgives him,
Yeah.
and then he goes and he demands, and then the king recalls his
debts.
sin and throws his family into slavery because it does exactly what he was doing before.
Yeah.
He says, therefore, if you guys don't forgive, but I think that is a command not only to the people that are wronging you, but I think it's also in ourselves. We're going to have to move beyond the sin. We're going to have to move beyond our failures. We're going to have to, even though we did them, even though there were things that were not good that we have done, and I'm probably the chiefest one in this room of stupidity. I've done some really bad stuff, and
I don't know. I think I'm right there with you. Oops.
well, that's not. We're not competing. I would win, but I'm just saying.
Of course,
Let's race
the
outside.
pastor will win.
Let's race outside.
You definitely win then, Mr. Tubby. Okay, what I'm saying is, if we're looking in the mirror and we're recalling these things, but we know that we have gotten forgiveness from the King.
Yes.
We're going to have to learn not to sit there and demand justice by the nape of the neck from ourselves. And I think that's the image that I'm getting is after I have already been appropriated and justified and forgiven by the King, then there's going to have to be a process of forgetting and forgiveness in that mirror. I'm going to have to learn, obviously, and I'm going to recall the lesson.
Yeah.
And that's obviously that's different forgetting than what we're talking about here. When I say forgive, I'm releasing the debt in my own life as well and choosing to go, yes, you did these things. Yes, I'm learning from these things, but I'm not going to hold myself back onto that person. I'm no longer that person.
We can't concentrate on the debt that we owe, knowing he's already paid the debt.
That's right.
And then we can't go looking for somebody to
Seek vengeance.
to get vengeance from. If we keep in our mind that of what we've been forgiven, then we won't. When somebody does something against us, we'll be quick to forgive them because we know how much more we've been forgiven for.
That's very true.
Well, how many times do you work and you have a boss who has a boss who has a boss? They have a term for that. It's called the something rolls downhill.
The rolls downhill?
Rolls down the hill.
So, when
What was that again?
It goes downhill.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, I love to use that.
but
Yeah.
button.
Yeah, I don't get to use it very often.
Well, we try not to swear here on the PT
Well, were you
podcast.
swearing? You didn't
No.
say the rolls downhill.
did not.
Yeah.
say
No, I
it.
didn't say that.
Yeah.
I didn't say that.
But you were thinking about
was
saying
thinking-
downhill. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did think of that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
obviously, when the boss is up there
Yeah.
and then everything's going downhill, they're finding their way to, I guess, seek justice. Is it?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. Yeah.
Because they're kind of like the debtor.
I don't know, man. I guess it depends. We'd have to assign the motive of the person that was
Yeah.
actually doing the correcting.
Because I'm not talking about duties. I'm talking about when people are upset and you get one boss who comes to another boss and he's upset with him. And so then he all
Takes
of a
it out
sudden-
on his
he
workers.
He always thinks, well,
I see what you're saying.
these guys that I have underneath me, they
I see.
look bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they didn't do their job, I look like I didn't do my job. My boss is onto me saying I didn't do anything right. Da 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 da. So, and then he just flips it around, goes back.
Well, then that's a problem in selfishness and it's not really a great leader that
Well, no,
that does that
at all.
So that goes to a whole nother. I have to forgive others in that capacity. Obviously, I want to learn from mistakes that are being made, even from other people. But we're talking about others. But I mean, when you say crap rolls downhill, and you know, pardon that expression, but it's the truth. Anytime that there's a reason why it's rolling downhill. Because usually, if as a leader, as somebody that is trying to fix deeper issues, that once it starts to cess down at the bottom, you need to correct from the bottom and work your way up to the top. And the only people that I have under my influence are the people that are underneath my leadership. What it needs to do is, I think it needs to go backwards from that. It needs to start from the top, and then the correction needs to roll down. And that's what it actually needs to look like. It needs to look like, okay, well, I need to look at myself in the mirror and find the things that need to change, and then work my way down from there and correct issues that led to all the things that happened to make that situation happen. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, instead of, well, you made me look bad. Well, that's not even the problem. That's just surface.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of crap rolls downhill. That is Americanized philosophy of leadership, where I'm more concerned about the way that I look than I am about correcting the issues.
Yeah.
That's how we get our philosophies about, and boy, don't make me preach, but that's how we get our religious Pharisaical philosophies about how we act, quote unquote, in church versus how our hearts are in reality.
Yeah.
And if we're busy doing surface level work, especially when we're talking about forgiveness, then what happens is you get that mentality of, I need to look like I forgive. I need to look like but I'm really not dealing with anything. What I'm really doing is, and that's where I was a little taken aback about the filing away thing, because in marriage, when we're talking about dealing with forgiveness in marriage, one of the things that you're not supposed to do, it's like the unfair battle, is bringing those back up. And if I file it away,
it'll come back up.
That's just me. I'm not talking about you guys, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, I am that guy. When I argue, it's like, no holds barred. I'm going to remember every instance and occurrence, and I'm going to bring those things out, and you're going to remember just why you have no right to talk to me about this stuff. And
I call that mudslinging.
That is absolutely what it is.
Yes.
And attitude reflects leadership. I'm just saying. I'm not going to say that our presidents and our congressmen and our senators do that or do not do that, although I probably am saying that they are doing that.
They are.
And I'm not going to say that our country absolutely reflects the leadership that's in place. And our country has absolutely got the leadership that they deserve right now. And I don't care if you voted Republican or Democrat. If you're out there doing the same stuff on Facebook that your Democrats and Republicans are doing, then you absolutely have the leadership that you deserve. End of story. I need to forgive you for that. But anyways, we'll go from there.
Was that filed back there?
Wow.
That was somewhere.
I think you just opened the drawer.
I did. I opened that drawer. I did. But it's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
When you're looking at leadership and you're looking at if I am the leader of my home, if I'm filing things away and not forgiving that in that capacity others, then my wife especially, if I'm allowing the past to dictate, then I'm chaining myself to something and anchoring myself to something that is it's not future, it's not progress, it's not forgiveness, and it is not love. It doesn't look like love. I'm chaining and anchoring myself to something that we're supposed to be growing past. And I'm bringing these things up, and it's now creating a tug of war between me and my wife versus that. And that forgiveness does that. It brings up bitterness. Filing it away, that's the thing. That's my question here, is how in the world, if we can't forget, and I think you answered that, Todd. You said it's a choice.
Yeah.
It is a choice.
You go, well, if it comes back up, what do we do with it?
Yeah.
We got to take the thought captive.
Well, that's 2 Corinthians now, isn't it? 2 Corinthians chapter 10, I think is what it is. For though we walk in the flesh, we're not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. And we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ, being ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete. So look at what is before your eyes, and if anyone is confident that he is Christ, let him remind himself that just as he is Christ, so also are we. And he's making a pretty bold statement here. He's saying that we're not waging war against the people. And I think when we're looking in the mirror, we have to say, we're not waging war against that person.
Right.
We're waging war against those thoughts that are raging up there that disqualify you as somebody that God has forgiven, that you are walking according. Romans 12, what is it? Romans 8, I think it says, there's therefore no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Yes.
And if you have gotten forgiveness, I think if you start to recall your sin and the amount of debt that you had with that person, I think that you will begin to hold yourself at the nape of the neck. And in fear of recompense from the King, who has obviously forgiven your debt and has sent you on your way, okay? Then I think in fear, you'll go and demand the denarii. I think that's what sometimes happens, that you want to be justified and you want to feel like you have authority or that you've got power, and you know you've sinned, you know you owe that much. I want to justify, I want to feel better about myself. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to hold somebody else by the nape of the neck, and I'm going to feel like I'm the king. I think that's what happened there. If you read that scripture, that's one way of looking at it, that he knew what he was guilty of. The king forgives him. His debt's done.
Yeah.
But he goes out, and because he knows who he is, he knows what he's done. How about this? He knows who he was and how much the king had forgiven him. And I think in that shame, when he didn't deal with forgiveness of himself, he went and started in bitterness and in unforgiveness of other people. He began to hold people by the nape of the neck.
Instead of walking in his freedom.
Yeah. Instead of knowing that he was forgiven, instead of realizing that debt was forgiven and paying that forward in kindness, he wallowed in shame and guilt, didn't forgive himself, and wound up holding somebody else by the nape of the neck. That's heavy. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that guy.
No.
Okay, so we talked about others. We talked about forgiving others. Talked about self. Last thing, and right now, I know this is a really, really hard topic. There's a lot of you out there that are going through this where people have died prematurely. People are in the hospital right now. You don't know what's going to happen. And you had a picture of how things were going to work out. And you feel kind of like Job.
Yep. How many Jobs are out there?
I'm wondering. And how many of you need to forgive God? Yeah. Not that he has done anything wrong. Not that he's
placing blame.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of you have had those conversations? And I know even this week I had a conversation with a young lady. She was saying that she went to see her fiance's family, and that they were blaming God for all the things that were happening on this earth. That it's all God's fault, that he's allowing this, and that it's his fault that he's allowing this thing. Now, there's a theological premise that I can talk about and get all upset about, but I'm not going to do that. I am going to say that some of you have got to deal with that bitterness towards the Lord, that hurt, that offense that you have with the Lord. And how do we do that? How do we get past our equation of how things should have worked out and trust him that he knew what was best?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying, reverting back to, it's a choice.
Yeah.
You have to choose to forgive. But when you first made that statement, the first thing that came to my mind was when my mother died of cancer. It was a very early age.
Wow.
By no means should she have been taken from the earth. And I know I was devastated. I was mad. I played the, Lord, I hate you. I can't believe you. Why would you do that to me? There's so much more time I need with her. And I was angry. And not just, well, I'm a little upset. I can't believe you did that. I was flat out PO'd. And so it took a while before I could say, all right, Lord, I get it. She had cancer. That's not your doing. But you took her home. Thank you. And so, but it was a choice. It was not, it didn't come because somebody opened a fortune cookie for me and said, you need to forgive God. It had to be one of those times where you just kind of look at everybody and kind of go, okay, it happens. The Lord does things for a reason. And in this case, it was for the better. And so I had to put that forgiveness in there in order for me to forget the pain. So.
Wow.
And
Sorry, I didn't mean to Debbie Downer there.
No, that's not
fine.
Debbie Downer.
That's exactly what a lot of people are going through. I mean,
a lot of people don't deal with death very well.
You said something though, and I want to key on it. You said that wasn't God. The cancer wasn't God. If it wasn't God, where'd it come from?
came from Satan.
Well, that's true, but I think that's probably why people go to that sentiment. Mm-hmm. Is because I don't think that we're defining it. We're saying, well, it didn't come from God. Well, who did it come from? And the answer is ominous. The answer is, well, every selfish decision that gets made out there results in some form of hurt or like God said, the wages of sin is death. So I'm gonna step off in it because that's what I'm gonna do. But let's just talk because you're a farmer, mm-hmm. and one of the biggest problems that we have, I know you and I have talked, is the GMO stuff that exists out there.
Right.
And we don't know, like with Roundup or any of this other stuff that happens with these farmers when they make this Roundup ready corn that is genetically modified to withstand
pest and
other things. Okay, now hold on.
That doesn't sound healthy.
The reason why they're doing it is so that they can spray the crops
and yield higher.
So that they can have more money.
Which is greed.
Ooh.
Right. But what they don't tell you is that this genetically modified stuff can result in, and I say can, I know some of you scientific people out there are going to get on there and go, well, technically, blah, 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 blah. Listen, I ain't a scientist, but I can tell you right now, there's enough studies out there to say that genetically modified stuff causes
cancer.
Oh my goodness. And so a selfish decision, although it seems like it's...
So I guess we could say it man-made.
It's a man-made decision. Well, not to say everybody is guilty of it.
No.
Adam's guilty of it. Adam sinned. He brought sin into the world.
Yeah.
I would say that.
Well, Eve started it.
Uh-oh.
I wasn't even ready for that.
Whoa, man.
And if a woman was here, she'd say, yeah, she'd kill you.
It's written in
her
the Bible.
name is the root.
Yes. She started it. Who pulled that out?
I would like to say that the opinions of my comrades are not necessarily the opinions of the PG podcast.
Joking, I promise.
Yeah, Lorraine, I hope you're listening to this. All right, I'm just going to say this, that every one of us, and this is how I would explain this, because people say, well, if it doesn't come from God, if cancer didn't come from God, if COVID didn't come from God, if this stuff, then why did God allow it? Here's the deal. God allows free will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And God has explained the system. He has said, listen, the wages of sin is death. My question to any of us is, have any of us sinned? Have any of us engaged in selfish decision making?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can
we all have?
Can we say?
So we all have sinned
with the knowledge
short.
But let me finish the thought.
Okay, sorry.
Let me finish this and say it like this. Can we say for certain how much that cost?
No.
Nobody knows.
No.
And so every time that they say, well, we're not hurting anybody by doing what we're doing.
Yeah, we're just making seeds that are
how do you know?
pest friendly.
How do you know? If God says this, if he says, and he's the author and creator and sustainer of all things, and he says that this is not good, and you say, well, the only way that I feel good is if I do this, or the only way I make money for my family is if I genetically modify corn, or the only way that I'm able to live is if I, do this or that. Okay. My comment is, how do you know what you're doing is not hurting something else or someone else? How do you have enough wisdom to determine? I guarantee Monsanto, even though they didn't think about the ramifications of, farmers in India who can't afford the genetically modified corn and they're suffering because of it, or somebody's eating it at home and they have an adverse reaction to this thing and they get cancer. That's just one example out of how many where somebody has made a decision that seemed harmless at the time, but did not have the wherewithal. And we end up going, well, God allowed that. No. God has a system of love and freedom, where you're able to make
freedom of choice.
That's right.
Yes.
We're able to make a decision and suffer the ramifications.
So
of
the
those.
idiot that comes in there and blows everybody up and shoots everybody up, and that is a choice he made to sin and to And God, I mean, he gave that person that choice. He
gives every one of us a choice.
Yeah. I mean, it's not God's fault that everybody was shot up and there was a mass.
I'm going to get in so
killing.
much trouble, and we don't have a lot more time. But Jeremiah,
I see what you're saying, though.
Jeremiah 19, he's really upset with the Israelites. And
God doesn't get upset. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're not reading the same Bible I am. Jeremiah 19:4 says, "Because the people have forsaken me." Who did? The people.
The people.
Did he cause them to do that? No. The people have forsaken me and profaned this place by making offerings in it to other gods whom neither they nor their fathers nor the kings of Judah have known. And because they have filled its place with the blood of the innocents and have built high places in Baal to burn their sons in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal.
Wow.
Which I did not command or decree, nor did it even enter my mind. That's God saying that to the Israelites.
So we can surprise God.
Well,
by our
it's
choices.
No, we can't surprise him, but
Well, kind of.
I don't know.
Read that. Last verse.
that was not in his mind of what love is.
Well,
Because he's love. There's no way that's love.
So when he's in the garden, we can get off on this tangent, but when he's in the garden and they sin and he's genuinely going, hey, where are you guys?
Yeah,
and why are you covered?
He still knows where they are.
you think so?
Oh, so he's playing with them.
He's not playing with him. He's letting them know that he's looking for them and they're hiding.
It's a whole nother podcast. What I am saying is that in the all-knowing of God, I don't think God sits up there, twiddles his thumbs and worries and concerns himself with actions that are not things that he has wanted for us at the beginning. He's not up there going, contemplating darkness, going, oh my gosh, I hope they don't do this.
What's going to happen? What am I going to do next?
That's right.
Yeah.
And so when he goes, why did you do this? Why are you doing this? He's genuinely going, of all the options
you chose,
that one didn't even cross my mind. You know why? Because that's so dark and that's so terrible. That's not even
capable of that.
That's why he's upset. Yeah. I can't look at the God of the Old Testament or even the New Testament and go, he was
God.
Anything other than same God, anything other than surprised that they would pick those things. He was absolutely going, what in the world is wrong with you people? Why would you do this?
Yeah.
So at every turn, and I think the things that we sit there and point our finger and go, well, that's God, that's God's fault. No. That's not. He did not preordain somebody to walk into a church with a gun and start shooting people. He didn't even know. He might have known that the guy was doing it. He might have known that the guy was choosing it. I think you're absolutely right on that. But I still think he grieves at those things.
Oh, yeah.
I still think he hurts. I think he hurts over the things that are happening now with COVID. I think that he's grieving over the losses of those people. I don't think he's happy with those things. And the sentiment of, the end result is the goodness of where he takes them home or he brings them home to be absent of the bodies, to be present with the Lord. I think those are all great things. Right. But I think that's another realm of forgiveness where we sometimes assign to God blame that does not belong to him. Agreed. And we say, because I almost feel like it's safe. It's like he's big enough to handle it. But if we're not careful, the bitterness that gets seated and rooted in our hearts about the Lord, it's not him. It's not him that's doing these things. It's not him that's bringing these things about. There's other things at work that are happening.
It's like what you said earlier when you said what our actions have done as a nation has put the people that we have in leadership.
Yeah, we've got the leaders that we deserve.
Because of the choices that America as a nation as a whole, they've turned away from the Lord, just as Israel did. And, they sacrificed babies. Well, what do we do?
That's another podcast.
Yeah.
and I think in forgiveness wise, it's
as a nation,
it's a predetermination of our hearts, whether or not we get an apology, because sometimes I think it's us that needs to just release the debt that we believe other people owe us and walk in freedom of that. Yeah. Because I think that frees us. That's the bottom line, is that if we're continually holding on to anchors that are drowning us, that of course we're going to drown. Of course. And usually the other people don't even know that you're upset with them. I mean, and God's up there going, listen, I didn't, this wasn't me. I didn't do this. This was somebody else's choice.
Yeah.
But you found yourself to be upset. I think you need to learn how to first of all, theologically, you need to understand what God's purpose is. And it's never to hurt or destroy. It's always based and rooted in love. When you're looking at Afghanistan and the Taliban, he's not the author of Taliban going in and cutting off heads. That's not what he didn't preordain Taliban to do that.
Evil.
Yeah. And you want to get into an argument with me, start blaming God for Taliban doing that kind of stuff. Start blaming God for abortion. Start blaming God for government agencies doing things that they don't need to be doing. And we're not going to get into that. But
Todd,
it's not on this podcast.
No, not on that one.
No. Can you explain to us a little bit more how you came to your resolve from being angry at the Lord and then realizing it's not his fault?
Sure. I know that the time
I think people could really help.
The time my mom had passed away, it had definitely been a spot in my life where I wasn't following on the Lord. I wasn't, I was quick to judge him. I was quick to call him out. But it wasn't one of those things where I was going to church, faithfully. I wasn't listening. I wasn't looking for words or spirit. I just wanted to live my life. And I knew my mom had cancer, which you'd think at that time you'd be praying to the Lord, finding him closer to you. But I didn't, for whatever reason. So I think in the end, it was time that healed my wounds. It was also a moment of when I had to say, okay, my mom's gone. There's nothing I can do. I could continue to be mad, but what good is it going to do for me? It's anger that I don't need to spend energy on. So
you had to choose.
Yeah.
So was it a quick release or was it a slow release?
No, it took probably a little over a year and a half.
Still stings sometimes?
Yeah. I mean, knowing that she's in a better place, that reassures my heart. But thinking, wow, at such an early age, I watch people who still call their moms every day or every other day or every week. It's like, man, I don't have that option.
Wow.
So.
Well, I guess that's where we're at. And it's forgiveness is not forgetting.
No.
Forgiveness is a continual releasing of the debt.
But it is a choice.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Choice of continually releasing the debt.
It's a choosing to say, they don't owe me anything.
Yeah.
This isn't, they're no longer indebted to me. And that's whether with others or with ourselves, or sometimes I think with disappointment with God, and we start to blame God on those things. You're saying it is a continual choice to say, you know what, God, I trust you. I'm releasing that expectation. I'm releasing that debt. You don't owe me anything. I think that's part of it. Well, I mean, really good conversation, guys. And we've already gone a lot longer than what I had anticipated.
Wow.
But what I'd like to say is that I know that there are some people out there that are going through this. We're going to play a song by a great band called Jericho March. Been looking forward to introducing you guys to these guys. They're great people. Jordan Rhodes is the lead vocalist, a good friend of mine. They're at a White House, and we're going to listen to their a song called "Prison Without Walls." Is from their latest project. The band, of course, is called Jericho March. We're going to play that, and then we're going to come back and we're going to just invite you to pray over these things, and then we're going to close it out. So here is Jericho March with "Prison Without Walls." I hope you guys enjoy it.
to the prison without chains. This is the place where convicts come to praise. When the world reminds us of our sins and our mistakes, give us the faith to shout your name and dance in the prison. No longer weighed by the chains. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego wouldn't bow to the altar made of gold. When given the chance, they chose to take a stand and to trust the God they know, the God they've always known. When old King Neb looked in the flame that was burning so hot, he saw forth man in the fire with them, and it was the Son of God. Welcome to the furnace without fire. The only thing burning is our desire to be made new, made in the image of you. Let our praises take us higher. And when the world comes caving in, let us walk through the furnace without fear of the fire. Welcome to the prison without chains. This is the place where convicts come to praise. When the world reminds us of our sins and our mistakes, give us the faith to shout your name and dance in the prison. No longer weighed by the chains.
That was Jericho March. I think it's Prison Without Chains. I think is what it is. Not Prison Without Walls. Prison Without Chains. But it's a great song. Love it. Jordan, sorry about that foul up there, man. It's a great tune, and I hope you guys go and check out Jericho March. They're on Spotify. They just released this album. It's a great album. And, man, if you guys are interested in having them, booking them, go to Jordan, quote-unquote, Jax Rhodes on Facebook. You can get a hold of him and book him for they're great worship leaders. They're great band. They're great people. They're just good people. And I appreciate you letting us use your song on the podcast today, even though I didn't get the title right. Like a Danny. You'll have to forgive me.
We forgive you.
Yeah. Well, it's not up to you. Well, I didn't offend you. I offended Jordan.
I don't know. I'm kind of offended.
I could feel him right now. He's offended.
Is he?
No, I don't know.
We can make a call.
He can listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's like, whatever, man. You played it as cool. I'm sure that's just how cool he is. Anyways, okay. So we're having, you know, deep theological conversation even during the break, and having a great time. This is spurring us on to ask questions even in our own life. So I know it's doing that for you. If you're at home today, you're having problems with bitterness, you're having problems with unforgiveness, you're having problems with anger, I'm going to finish up the thought by reading Matthew chapter 5. And he starts a little bit in that Matthew 5. He talks about the Beatitudes, and he talks about salt and light. He talks about Christ coming to fulfill the law. And then almost out of nowhere, he gets into Matthew 5, verse 21. He says, "You have heard it said to those of old that you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable for judgment. And whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. And whoever says you fool will be liable to hellfire. So if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift.
Yeah.
Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you're going with them to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny." So I'm telling you that it is so important that you release these things, that you allow yourself to not only forgive others, but look in the mirror and realize that God has forgiven you. And if he's forgiven you, you need to release that debt on yourself.
Yeah.
There's no way you're paying it back. It's not going to happen. Now, I realize that we're not going to be able to forget the person that hurt us a long time ago. I realize that those things are there. I think that God can do wonders and works and maybe do supernatural forgetting. I'm not hurt. If you have a story like that, let us know. But I am telling you right now that if you're in these positions where you might even be mad at God, you might be wondering how you're going to get past these things, I just want to remind you that if you release these things and you'll forgive yourself, you forgive others, and maybe even forgive the Lord, even though he hasn't done anything wrong, still allowing yourself to release the debt that you feel he owes to you, I think you're going to walk in a freedom that you might not have had before. And how do you do that? It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's as these thoughts come, you have to remind yourself that you're letting these things go and not ruminate, like Steve was saying, not ruminate on those things and meditate. If you're going through things or just have some things you need to talk about, again, give us a message on Facebook at the PT Podcast. We really want the opportunity to listen and pray with you.
Yeah.
And maybe you've never heard about this God that is powerful and is forgiving and is merciful and is going to lead you through these times. Listen, I know that Jesus would love to hear from you. So just take a moment right where you're at. I want you to just talk to him, as real as it can be. If you're having a hard time letting things go, if you're harboring anger, resentment, maybe bitterness, even if you have questions on how to do that, ask him first. And then if you still have questions, listen, talk to your pastor. If you've got a pastor at home, go talk to him, or come to us message us on Facebook, and we would love to hear from you. Okay. But, and until that time, listen, we're going to close it out today. We appreciate you listening. My name is Tim Lech, PT. This is
Todd Bergen, the Irishman.
The Red Irishman.
The redheaded Irishman.
and we got Steve over here. What's your name, dude?
Steve Howard. I'm the bald beauty, you said.
I said.
Well, no, it's the fact.
It's a fact now.
It's a fact.
It's accepted, generally premised, you are the bald beauty now.
Yeah.
In fact, when the calendars come out, you're on the front cover.
Oh, my wife's going to do the calendar.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. That's scary. You're going to have to forgive us for that one, folks. What? Listen, if you guys want to support, please go on the page at Podbean. You can be a patron. We can send you T-shirts and all that stuff. We'd love to get PT Podcast T-shirts, but we need your help to continue this thing going. Cool. So please give us, you can go to the patron site and financially contribute if you like what you're hearing. Even if you don't like what you're hearing, please feel free to financially contribute. Otherwise, let me tell you something. God is faithful. He is providing, and we are so thankful for this opportunity to come into your lives through this podcast. And if no one has told you, I hope you know it. God loves you so much, and so do I. And I know that these guys love you too. We're praying for
Amen.
you.
Yes.
It's rough out there, guys. Don't forget that he's faithful. Hang in there. We'll see you next time. Good night.